Hey everyone, this is the 10th day of my ACL surgery, which was a patella tendon allograft surgery. For those who don't know, they chisel away from your patella graft just below your patella, which is your kneecap, that tendon, and use that as your ACL, as well as my meniscus recovered. So it's the 10th day. I'm able to put some weight on my crutches, as I said earlier. The homework for me was to be able to raise my leg. But of course, if I can't contract my quads on my own, then there's no way I'm going to be able to raise my leg as of yet, as that would need me to be able to lock my leg out for me to be able to raise the leg. Therefore, that's the work that I'm doing. I've tapered off my drugs, which initially was Oxycodone. Oxycodone was, for me, I would say, for me to know the difference between that and hydrocodone, dreadful. Although it is a nerve blocker, you get constipation really bad, you get dizziness really bad, you get lightheaded, dry mouth, a little bit of queasiness. So all those beautiful, wonderful things that you get don't really work for you, in the sense of, if you're going to be really lightheaded and dizzy while you're trying to balance yourself and walk around, doesn't give you any sense of confidence to be able to progress, in my opinion. Again, this is only my opinion. This is how it worked on me. These things don't help you try and work towards recovery, because you don't feel stable on your crutches, you don't feel safe, you don't feel controlled. Anyway, as I started to taper off them, although I was told to use them, maximum use was every 4 hours, you had the crazy itchiness all over your body, and you were like a crazy person who was covered in fleas. That's how I was scratching myself. When I tapered off them slowly, for the purpose of tapering off drugs, really, and being able to handle the pain, because ultimately you want to taper off them to start getting sensations back in your leg and be more in control. I went to 6 hours, then to 8 hours, and eventually I was at 11.5 hours. What I noticed on me at 11 hours, although my objective and my goal was to get to 12 hours, so I would only use the drugs, twice a day, and then work towards once a day. What I noticed when I was on the 11th hour, my temperature would slightly raise and my knee would be really hot. And I would feel a little bit shiverish, almost like the start of a fever, but the very early stages, not like crazy. So that I would then take another tablet an hour earlier than planned, and I would notice in the next half an hour of that, my temperature would start to go down, my knee wasn't as hot, and I started to feel better. With that, obviously, at the 11th hour, there was no constipation per se. I wasn't as dizzy. I had more control. I felt more secure. So now on the stage of a physical therapy. When I was in physical therapy, I'd make sure that I took my Oxycodone, obviously, 40 minutes before my physical therapy. And on my third session of physical therapy, which was on Friday, just gone, it was at 8 a.m., so I made sure I was taking them in the car at 7:30. So I'd taken them at 7:30 a.m. To be ready for physical therapy, for the push and stuff. So the main objective in physical therapy was to lock out my leg. I don't know if you can, I'll show you my good leg. To lock out the leg and raise it, yeah, like that, which is this leg here, to try and do that too. That wasn't happening, so they used something like this that I bought on Amazon, which is a stimulator to try and wake up your quad muscles and hopefully simultaneously I could try and engage myself mentally, send the messages to my quads and start to engage the quad on my own to get into action, so then I wouldn't be dependent on the simulator. That's why I bought one myself on Amazon too. It's quite cheap. And I did tell my physical therapists, and they did say, bring it in and we'd show you how. I was a little naughty. I started using it because I know how it's used. I don't advise people to do it unless you have a good understanding of anatomy and physiology to begin with, and your body. So now my theory is I was not able to contract my quads like this quad in physical therapy the first few days, and not that successful on my last session. Now that has to take place for me to be able to lock out my leg and hopefully raise it. So my theory is this. Yesterday morning I woke up, no, the day before, sorry, when I was still on Oxycodone, and I'd started to taper off, and I thought, you know what, let me try and take it at 7 p.m. on Friday evening, and maybe not take it later on till the next morning, which was Saturday. Sorry, Thursday I'm talking about, my apologies. Versus Thursday night, 7 p.m., go to sleep. I woke up Friday morning with a very tight shin, a very tight knee, which is to be expected because I hadn't had my next painkiller. And I have to also say that the painkiller I did take on Thursday evening of Oxycodone was half a tablet. So I tapered myself down to let's split it and take half a tablet twice a day, rather than a full tablet twice a day. Now, so therefore, when I woke up, I had a very tight shin and tight knee, much more sensation. But what I did notice, I woke up throughout the night, and that my body wanted to contract the leg on its own, my quad. It was contracting. I could do it. It's almost like saying, I've had enough of this. I want to wake up. I want to lock out. I want to be alive, you know. So I tried to push myself, which I did yesterday, Saturday, with the same experiment, especially after on Friday not being as successful with my quad contractions on my own. So therefore I did a mini experiment, and I skipped my painkiller when I went to sleep. I just went to sleep early, and I woke up on Saturday morning, as I said, very tight, all around my knee area, all around my shin. But if you can work, when I tried to get up on crutches to go to the bathroom, I was not able to straighten my leg straight away, my heel. Basically, I couldn't put on the floor, whereas I could on the medication. So I worked through that slowly. I just walked very slowly, and stretching out my shin area and the feeling. And I tried again to do some contractions of my quad, and I actually did. So my theory of that is, obviously it's due to the painkillers, and a good amount of it is due to painkillers. What I mean by that is these specific Oxycodone and hydrocodone, which, by the way, from yesterday I started on hydrocodone because my Oxycodone had finished, and with hydrocodone I found that I wasn't dizzy and I wasn't sleepy, which was great. The constipation issue is the same, but again, if you're using half and not long, you can work around it. What I found with that is, early in the morning, since I hadn't taken it since over 12 hours, I had more control over my quad, and I was able to contract. Therefore, doesn't this mean that because the hydrocodone and oxycodone blocks the brain from sending messages, well, actually, it doesn't, the nerves are disconnected basically from the brain, in a sense of it stops the message going. Therefore, you don't feel the pain. You don't feel the pain messages from the nerves don't go to the brain, tells the brain nothing, that you're not in pain. Doesn't that also then have the same kind of effect of message signals to the quads or any other part of your body? So I believe it does, hence why I have more control over my quad muscle when I woke up and I had a longer period of time of not being on the half of a hydrocodone than when I'm on it. Because I had more control of being able to squeeze out my quads when I was not on it than when now I've started to be on it. An hour ago I took it, and therefore again I'm finding a huge great difficulty in locking out my quad. So if I'm supposed to do, I don't know if you can see very well, this is my good leg, squeeze out and lift. If I'm supposed to do the same here, as you can see, no matter how much I'm trying to push down, I'm actually feeling more my glute muscle squeezing with the pressure of pushing down than I am my quad. So this is something I have to master and get over. My subconscious is protective, as we do naturally. So I've done my pumps of my calf quite a bit. I don't know if you can see here. I've pumped this quite a bit. This is working, not a problem. And you can see the calf muscle here actually activating and working and stimulating. But ultimately now I've done this to death. I am trying to get this quad going. So I put a towel underneath behind my knee, which is an easier way to try and feel behind your knee, trying to push down into the towel. Therefore, you'll try and get a contraction, which is basically this. Look, if I'm pushing down, your quads squeeze, which you'll eventually can walk to lifting. But if you can't push down, then you can't lift, which is ultimately the goal. Ow, monkeys, that was a bit too much of a push. Like I pushed, but it burned the hell out of here. So this is the job that I'm trying to do. Once this is achieved, we can work towards lifting the leg, and then to progress daily even better. So ultimately, this is what I'm really trying to achieve, so that when I go Tuesday to physical therapy, I'm able to do this. But it seems quite hard, and I'm not too sure if it's my subconscious or that. Although, if I put my hands here and I really squeeze by raising my foot at my heel and really squeeze, I do feel something. But again, I feel predominantly my glutes more so than my quads. So that's how it should be. The foot, squeeze. But that, as you see, is like a totally separate entity that is really not. And if you notice here, when I squeeze, there's a contraction and you think, oh, she's not. But that's my adductors and my glutes. They're firing, but they're not the things that we have to worry about. But not at all. So I need to put the stimulator machine on next and see how it goes from there. So hopefully the next clip will be a progress. That's my ACL progress. So far, I hope it was helpful, as well as the narcotics. But again, this is from my own personal experience, how I reacted, how I acted, and how I felt with the narcotics. And as I tapered off, the differences that I saw on me personally. I will always suggest that these theories, you discuss it with your doctor, maybe even your therapist, but the therapist doesn't really know that much about the narcotics, the physical therapist, as would your doctor who prescribed them to you in the first place. So I always suggest whatever theories you have or things you want to try, always discuss it with the people who have operated on you and the people who you've given yourself to help yourself progress. Okay, hope this was helpful. And I'll be posting more as asked about my physical recovery. Thanks, guys. Take care.